He suddenly realized that the worst student in his class might actually be a long-distance running prodigy. He had been following the boy by car for 10 whole minutes. The speedometer showed 12 miles per hour, yet the boy never slowed down. That left him a little stunned. Curious to see how far the kid could go, he kept driving behind him until the boy finally noticed.
Why are you following me?
You know how fast you were going?
What are you, a cop?
Can I give you a lift?
No. Jim, quit following me.
As he watched the boy walk away, Jim fell into deep thought. The kid he just saw might really be something special. Back home, Jim started digging through old records. He compared times from previous state competitions, and the results shocked him. At that pace, the boy could easily rank among the top 10 runners in the entire state, and that's without proper running shoes. With the right gear, he might even be a champion. Jim felt like he had just discovered buried treasure. As a PE teacher and coach, finding a champion could change everything for him. His reputation, his pay, even his entire life. He could finally leave the small, forgotten town. This was McFarland, one of the poorest places in California. The only reason Jim ended up here was because he had no other choice. He used to be a promising coach, but after accidentally injuring a player during a game, he was fired and labeled as hot-tempered. No school wanted him anymore. Desperate for a job, he moved his entire family to this dusty little town. They were used to city life, so everyone struggled to adjust. There wasn't even a proper restaurant around. Not a single place selling burgers, just tacos and burritos. Crime was bad, and Jim never felt safe. He hated everything about this place and wanted to leave that very day, but no other school would take him, so he had no choice but to stay and teach here. On his first day, he discovered just how undisciplined the students were. When he told them to warm up, 3 of them simply walked off, saying they had to go home to work on the farm. Jim didn't expect much anyway. He barely cared about the class, just told the rest of them to jog a few laps and called it a day. But that's when he noticed something strange. These kids were good at running. Still, he didn't think much of it, until one evening, driving home, he saw Thomas. The boy was running at 12 miles per hour again. Jim couldn't believe it. At that speed, Thomas could run a mile in 5 minutes. The world record for marathon pace was just slightly faster. Thomas was a rare talent. For the first time in a long while, Jim felt a spark of hope. If he could bring these runners together, form a cross-country team, and lead them to victory, he might become a respected coach again, maybe even find a better job elsewhere. He went straight to the principal with his idea, but the principal wasn't interested. There was no funding. That didn't stop Jim.
California public school system pre-approved 6 new sports a few years ago to get funding for new lockers, including, guess what? Cross country.
The principal finally agreed. Now that the team was approved, Jim needed runners. In class, he set up a small race. The top 4 would each get a sports drink. The students jumped at the chance. After the run, Jim picked the best finishers and invited them to join his team. The first to say yes was Johnny, who already loved running. With Johnny's help, Jim quickly recruited 7 runners in total. Of course, Thomas was one of them. Training began, but every time Jim tried running with them, he was out of breath halfway through. 4 kids who ran to school every day. Though, this was nothing. They finished the drills easily. Watching them gulp down free tap water after training, Jim felt a pang of guilt. None of them even owned real running shoes. He said nothing, but he was deeply moved. To test their true ability, he soon registered them for a local race and bought them new uniforms and shoes. The boys were thrilled and full of confidence, but cross-country was a team sport. Scores were based on placement. 1 point for first, 2 for second, and so on. Only the top 5 runners from each team counted, and the lowest total score won. Before the race, other schools laughed at them. They came from McFarland, the poorest town around. The boys felt humiliated, but also determined to prove themselves. When the race started, Thomas ran among the top 3. Others were doing fine too. On flat ground, Thomas was unbeatable. But when the hills came, his pace dropped fast, one after another. Runners passed him. By the time he reached the finish line, he was outside the top 10. Their team came in last. Still, Jim took full responsibility. He blamed himself for not scouting the course earlier. He was disappointed, but not defeated. They had trained too lightly. The next day, he found a steep hill nearby. That became their new training ground. The boys ran until they were gasping for air. When they asked to rest, Jim refused. He told them real victories come only through hard work. They kept running until they could barely stand. Only Thomas kept going, stubborn as ever. To him, no matter how much they trained, nothing would change their lives. Those hills they ran on were made of almond shells, the same shells they had to shovel for work every day. To Thomas, training on them felt meaningless. Even if they won, they'd still end up in the fields. And he was right. These kids were all children of farm workers. Many of them woke up at 5 to wash cars for extra money. Before sunset, they'd ride on trucks to pick crops. That was their life during school breaks. During the week, they got up at 4:30 every morning, climbed onto farm trucks half asleep, and spent hours bent over under the scorching sun. Only when school was about to start did they take off their hats and run through the dusty wind toward class. No wonder they were such strong runners. After learning all this, Jim made a promise to himself. He would help these kids run their way to a better life. He started studying everything he could about cross-country. He watched old tapes, learning every technique. Then, day after day, he passed that knowledge on, riding his pink bicycle alongside the team as they trained. Jim worked hard, and so did the boys. After weeks of training, McFarland High faced one of the best teams in the district. Before the race, Jim gathered his runners and lifted their spirits.
Where are we from?